Was los? It's your German boy, and welcome back to Planetarian. In the last episode, as we continue to repair the projector, we find time to bond with an android girl who used to annoy the crap out of us, but now we've kind of warmed up to in a way, and even had a kind of spiritual dissertation with. I feel like we'd have a great traveling companion here. Anyway, let's pick up where we last left off, shall we? Her information ribbon slowly faded, denoting the fact that she was in hibernation mode. And once again, I was the only thing that stirred in this planetarium. Falling asleep is the only thing she excels at, huh? Even though there was no way she could have heard me. I could have sworn that I saw her quirking her lips in laughter. This airtight room, bathed by the air conditioning. Its operation, which only occurred but a single week per year. I had no way of understanding whether it was the machinations of fate or the vagaries of random chance that had landed me here at this time. There were a few rumors that I could recall about robots. Immediately following the outbreak of the war, a forced stop signal was issued over all RF channels that caused most robots to cease functioning altogether. The fear was probably that someone would compromise the robot's software and subsequently turns them into weapons. The outer shell of the robot was nothing more but a cluster of organic material and precision electronics. These things, left standing where they stopped, no matter whether it was indoors or outdoors, all deteriorated to junk in a matter of years. In other words, the very fact that she was still functional in this day and age was something close to a miracle. Had she been extremely lucky? Or had she been extremely unfortunate? I gently gazed at her sleeping face. This robot, who could go from hard worker to mindless chatterbox and nothing flat, was now sleeping without even dreaming. She had a disarming, peaceful smile on her face while holding that large light bulb to her chest. It looked to me like she was embracing the very stars themselves. I very carefully ensconced the fixed star light bulb in its socket, closed the outer casing, and then screwed the assembly down. With this, my repairs were finally at an end. It had already been 3 days since I first set foot in this place. She was standing alone in the reception area, accompanied only by interrupted sheets of rain. "I'm finished!" When I called out to her, she turned her whole body around to face me as per usual.
イエナさんの修理は完了したということですか?
"Yeah, I've done all I can," I answered thus. The projector was now waiting merely for the light bulbs to be fit. I'd polished all the moving shafts, lenses, light bulbs, and auxiliary projection devices, swapped out worn parts for newer ones, reassembled everything, and made careful adjustments. Some of the machinery under electronic control had decayed beyond the point of repair, but that fact did not present an obstacle to the projection itself. There was nothing I could do beyond this. She stared for a little while at me, her face half in doubt. It was almost as if she were letting out a breath that she'd been holding for a very long time.
私はとても嬉しいです。イエナさんもとても喜んでいると思います。当館スタッフ一同になり代わりましてお礼申し上げます。本当にありがとうございます。
She courteously clasped both hands together and bowed deeply towards me. "You don't have to thank me. Just show me the stars already."
はい、東映まであと13分です。 どうぞお入りになってお待ちください。
she said clearly, and then turned from her vantage point at the entranceway to face an information podium. All projections have currently been postponed. She lifted away a placard that had that legend written on it and moved it back to the side of the reception desk. I stretched my back and then stared out the entranceway into a world made hazy by the rain. And then I realized just what it was she was planning on doing. Trying to attract customers, yeah?
はい、ただいま午後4時47分ですので、受付終了まであと3分間あります。実を申しますと、今日のような雨の日は稼ぎ時なんです。
The pattern on her ribbon changed. Golden stars and letters danced across a cerulean background that matched her uniform quite well. This was probably the best and most professional of her fashions. She looked at me, smiled somewhat shyly, and then turned to face the rain once more.
プラネタリウムはいかがでしょう。どんな時も決して消えることのない美しい無休のきらめき。満天の星々が皆様をお待ちしています。プラネタリウムはいかがでしょう。
I leaned against the wall for a while and simply listened to her. Her volume and her intonation were utterly unchanged from her everyday practice runs. But on this very day, she was mouthing those words with utmost and terribly genuine pride in order to draw in the people who might be passing by. Her voice resounded like a requiem mass through the abyss of the streets upon which human feet would never tread again. Just how many facial expressions did the engineers and artisans who had designed her endow her with? Right now, her eyes were shining with radiance, and she looked at me to be blushing slightly.
本日は花火師デパート本店屋上プラネタリウム館にようこそお越しくださいました。私は当館解説員の星野ゆめみと申します。投影を始めます前に簡単な注意事項をお伝えします。ドーム内では
I've already heard this, so you can leave it out.
いえ、職務規定上ここは省略できないことになっています。
She calmly declared, unperturbed by the jeering of her audience. For someone who'd manipulated the visitor count and the projector program as she pleased, she was a stickler about the strangest things. Fine, do as you please.
ありがとうございます。それでは改めまして簡単な注意事項をお伝えします。ドーム内では大変よく音が響きます。投影中の死後は
After her explanations were finally finished, she took a breath.
それでは最後に皆様を星の世界へお誘いする大切なパートナーを紹介します。盛大な拍手でお迎えください。イエナさんです。
Determined not to be defeated by her jubilant voice, I clapped with all my might. For several seconds after the applause had stopped, she walked into the aisle along the guest seating, and then she said,
実はイエナさんというのはこの大きな機械の名前なんですね。
She must have put on this skit many thousands of times before, yet she performed it as if she were truly enjoying it.
それではイエナさんから皆様にお近づきのご挨拶を。
The motor quietly began to make reassuring noises. The latitude axis that had given me so much trouble up until the very end of repairs began operating smoothly. It was as if the projector itself was bowing down to her, as if it were a wild mythical beast tamed by the touch of a pure virgin. Both she and the projector seemed to be very happy to be operating under proper procedure after 30 long years.
さて、本日ついに当プラネタリウムは開館から数えまして249万7290人目のお客様にご来館いただきました。スタッフ一同になり代わりまして厚くお礼申し上げます。この栄えある日を記念しまして本日は特別投影をご用意しました。秋の一日、外では雨が降り続いていました。雨降りの日は退屈だし洗濯物も乾きません。ロボットの私でもなんとなく気分が沈みがちです。ですが安心してください。プラネタリウムではいつでも太陽を呼び出すことができるんです。
A round disk rose alone in the southwest sky.
はい、これが太陽です。
Although she had introduced it with great pride, it just looked like an extremely dim orange spot to me. I probably should have polished those lenses more carefully. As I pondered on this, the motor for the daily motion axis was activated.
太陽がゆっくりと西の空に沈んでいきます。
The sun glided obliquely on top of the screen of the dome, finally disappearing behind the horizon. The interior lights slowly grew dimmer and dimmer.
一番星が見えてきました。宵の明星、金星です。
The entire western sky was now aglow in the reddish violet of sunset. From the midst of that tableau, a brilliant pinpoint of light stabbed into my eyes like a needle. As the fixed star balls acted in concert, a yellow light coalesced from the countless lenses in both balls. The fixed star balls had been activated without a hitch.
空はだんだん暗くなっていきます。楽しい遊びは明日にして早く家に帰りましょう。やがて夜の帳が辺りをゆっくりと包みます。
I couldn't believe my eyes. I could only think that the projector's condition had become so bad it had undergone catastrophic failure. Pinpoints of silver light, like so many grains of sand, were scattered all over the dome as if they'd been there since the very beginning, twinkling in silence. Some were bright, some were dark. Others were red, and others were yellow. An eternity of stars, some that seemed to fall, some as if they burned, some like gold dust, and some like hundreds of jewels. I had heard stories of what the starry sky had looked like before the advent of the war and the rain. I could never in my wildest dreams have conjured up the spectacle that was presenting itself before my very eyes.
今晩8時の星空です。
She proclaimed proudly.
高い山の頂上や空気がきれいな場所に行かなければ地上からこれほどたくさんの星を見ることはできません。天井を横切っているのが天の川です。煙のように見えますが本当は小さな星が寄り集まってできています。古代の人々はまるでミルクが流れているようだと思いこれをミルキーウェイと名付けました。
If I'm not mistaken, the Romans had their own name for it, the Via Lactea. If I remember my Latin right. Sure enough, I saw a dim white band in the midst of the jet black, as if someone had thrown a fishing net over the sky. Her voice continued to stream through the river of the heavens.
一番高いところ、空のてっぺんにある星がご覧になれるでしょうか。これが白鳥座の一等星デネブです。
Deneb, Altair, Vega, and the magnificent triangles they comprised together. And connecting the dim stars in the sky were so many constellations. Cygnus, Aquilia, Lyra.
これらはみんな夏の星座です。今日は肌寒い一日でしたが、宵の星空に目を移せば、そこにはまだ夏の名残を見つけることができます。それでは、秋の星座にはどのようなものがあるでしょう。
Her commentary began to shift over to the autumn stars. I sank back in my chair and from time to time surveyed my surroundings. I did so because I felt that surely if I were to continue looking up at the stars, my own spirit would be sucked into that immaterial sky. It seems that the projector was in excellent condition after all. As bulky and implacable as the Titan Atlas, who carried the world on his back, the projector slowly allowed its fixed star balls to rotate in place. The winged horse, Pegasus, the chained princess, Andromeda.
このままではエチオピアの国に災いは続くでしょう。優しく賢いアンドロメダ姫は自分が生贄になりますと王様に申し出ました。
She launched into the recitation of ancient myths without hesitation or stuttering.
海からはお化けクジラがどんどん迫ってきます。アンドロメダは必死で身をよじりますが、鎖はびくともしません。このままでは食べられてしまいます。誰か助けて！アンドロメダは心の中で助けを呼びました。その時です。
As I raised myself in my chair a bit, I could see small shadows clinging close to the projector. As she talked, she tugged on her interface cable gently with her arms, as if it were indeed a chain imprisoning her. Regardless of the fact that usually probably no one noticed. Right now, in this very world, she was an omnipotent storyteller, and the stars were her little garden. The princesses, heroes, monsters, and gods, all of them bowed down to her reverently, playing their individual parts in the unfolding drama with absolute obedience.
こうしてアンドロメダとペルセウスは星座となり、今も秋の夜空で幸せに暮らしているのです。
The story was over. As if to allow what she had just said to sink into the minds of those in the audience, she fell silent for a few seconds. Soft starlight flooded down upon her pale cheeks as if by the design of time itself.
星座のご案内の次はいよいよ記念投影となります。題しまして宇宙に羽ばたく。
And at that moment, all the stars disappeared. It felt as if she just let out a shriek to which she could give no voice. What happened? Even as I bolted out of my seat, I stopped mid-motion. The darkness that surrounded me was so profound that it was as if the other chairs, the dome, and even all the space around me had vanished. Suddenly, a light arose from the front. She was enveloped in a gentle yellow aura, unlike that from a candle.
お客様、どうぞ落ち着いてください。
She said to me as I ran up to her.
私の制服には光繊維が織り込まれています。照明が戻るまでしばらく私のそばでお待ちください。
What happened? Did a light bulb burn out?
イエナさんが反応しません。すべての投影装置および可動軸が動きません。私単体では対処できない重大な事態です。とても困りました。
Damn it! As I fumbled my way to the top of the projector pedestal, I grew worried that something serious was amiss. The 3 green emergency lights that had continued shining with low luminosity even during the projections had completely gone out. And then I understood. This was not a breakdown in the projector. nor was it something that was particularly easy to solve. Where's the fuse board?
はい、こちらです。
She pulled the interface cable out of its socket near her ear. I followed her as she vaulted without fear or hesitation into the darkness. The problem was simple. It was so simple that it verged on the idiotic, that it was difficult for me to truly accept that it happened in the first place. The weak stream of electrical power from the sarcophagus city that had somehow miraculously supplied this place for over 30 years had died out during the one time when it was actually needed. Or perhaps the operation of the projector itself was the trigger of the outage. But no matter what the cause was, I had no way of restoring the power.
お客様、お聞きしてよろしいでしょうか。
As I'd carried on my useless struggle with the fuse board, she had fallen mysteriously silent, but at last she opened her mouth again.
イエナさんを修理するにはどのような工具が必要でしょうか。構成電球を交換すればいいのでしょうか。お客様がいらっしゃるのに投影を中断するなどあってはならない事態です。一刻も早く修理して投影を再開しなくてはなりません。記念投影をご覧になるのはお客様が最初なんです。当館のスタッフ一同が心を込めて制作した自信作なんです。ですから。
She stared at me beseechingly with her eyes wide open. There is no malfunction. The power's been cut off, is all.
申し訳ありませんが、意味がよくわかりませんでした。
The electricity has been cut off. It's an electrical outage, do you understand?
はい、停電ですね。しばらくすれば非常用電源に切り替わります。
This place has been supplied all along by that emergency power of which you speak. Now that it's been cut off, we're out of options.
それではいつ頃元に戻るでしょう。
It will never return. It's not a problem of just this building either.
それではどのようにすれば投影を再開できるでしょう。
I could not say anything.
私にお手伝いできることがあれば何なりとお申し付けください。
She again sank into silence, eagerly awaiting my words. She was like a mother who had already knew the condition of her child's disease by reading the doctor's facial expression. I could clearly feel every single second passing me by. She arose from her sitting position and turned towards me.
お客様、それでは特別投影はもう。
Listen closely to what I have to say in the next episode. Sorry guys, I gotta cut it off like this because my recording software fucks up if I keep it running too long. So I'll save this next bit for next time. Till then, it's been your German boy. Auf Wiedersehen.